So good morning, everyone, and glad to have all of you here. I hope this is, someone just reminded me that my topic is 14 years old. So, and it has been beaten down to the earth. Uh, so do you have a,
Yeah.
okay, great. And yeah, so can better ML models save us a 2008 repeat? And I was one of the persons who kind of saw this firsthand. So just wanted to give you a little background. So I was in Washington Mutual, which was one of the banks which was in the center of all this happening. And it was having like a 300 billion mortgage portfolio out there in Seattle. And that was one of the two banks which drove it down, Countrywide and Washington Mutual, if any one of you are that old, maybe the younger generation may not. And I can just quickly also give a background of what the 2008 bubble was, so that everyone who's new might have a little hang of it. So what kept on happening is that there was a thing which said that mortgages are ultra safe. You can never go wrong in mortgages because A, salaries always keep increasing, so you can give more and more mortgages, and housing prices always keep going up. And that's how the 2008 financial bubble happened. And what were the stated reasons? Is securitization and credit default swaps based on high credit ratings. What kept happening is that the credit bureaus like Standard & Poor's, they get paid for giving credit rating to the bank portfolios, and the banks are paying them, so they kept on giving higher credit ratings based on historical data. So that was the key piece that we have to remember, that they kept giving it based on historical data. And that historical data was based on, say, 100 borrowers. Okay. And that was a small size sourced in a certain manner, which, as we went ahead, we gave the same loans based on that rating to 100,000 borrowers. Now, when you move from 100 to 100,000, there are a lot of rules which get diluted in the marketing and credit, which kind of was not taken care of in the assumptions which went ahead. Then the second stated reason was predatory lending with teaser rates. So the favorite one was 525 ARM. So you have 5 years, zero interest rates, and then it resets to whatever the floating rate which was out there. Now, what used to happen is that when the housing market was good, people who could not afford the raise would just go out and sell it, and they would make a good chunk of money out of it. And that was what the history was. And looking at that history, the bank said, oh, this is very safe, because what's going to happen is that either the guy is going to switch or he's going to sell. So we don't have any risk out there. And the third was excessive risk taking. So we'll come to that a little bit. But latent reasons which are out there is what I wanted to say is growth driven incentives with herd mentality. So there was always this red flagging we used to do, and I was part of the credit risk on the credit card portfolio side. So fortunately, I was not on the mortgage side. But we used to do, oh, this whole portfolio, this is running at 80% loss rate. What's happening? But then the marketing department would come back and say, oh, that's fine, but we are getting 60 cents on the dollar, so why don't you source it? That, anyways, I can go out and sell it off, so why don't you source it? Because it's not coming on my books, it's someone else who is picking it up, so why don't you go and do it? And that whole thing where there were incentives which were tagged to growth were very much a driver, I feel, in the ARM mortgages. Overconfidence and complacency on regulation. So complacency on regulation, I say, because as credit card guys and as personal loan guys, everybody had the finest point, finest print. Even if we publish an ad that up to $30,000 credit limit, we would be pulled up by the government and CNET, and someone would have to give a standing, and all that would be there. But for mortgages, nobody cared because they're very safe. Okay, so that's kept happening. And OTS, which was the regulator, also was more like oversight advisory. They would not pull the bank and shut it down for anything. So that was there. And there was a lot of overconfidence in the board and the management too, that, hey, it only matters how much you source and how big your portfolio is. And everybody's big ego was tagged to how big a portfolio he was handling. So that's the overconfidence which was there. And nobody thought of cascading effects. So when I talk about cascading effects, what I mean is that there is a job loss, there is a housing increase, and so on. So 1 plus 1 is not equal to 2, it's equal to 4, because when it happens, it all happens in a jiffy. All of us are seeing that in the job market today. Like 3 months ago, if I was to hire a senior DevOps engineer, it would go like a crazy number and nobody would even show up for the interview. I make 5 offers and nobody comes. And today, the whole game has totally changed. So that what you can say, the cascading effect is a very important piece. So in a downturn, the sentiment matters. So I'm just setting the whole piece. And I know this is not, the title is about ML, but what I'm not going to speak is just something about what is non-ML piece that needs to be taken care of. So the job market and global uncertainty, these are the two of the biggest pieces in the housing market. And why do I say so? Why do people buy houses? People don't buy houses to stay in them. People don't buy houses to stay in them. People buy houses because the house price is likely to go up. If you see the house rentals today in India too, it's just 1% of the house cost. So it doesn't really make sense to buy a house. You can just rent. But people buy houses because the house prices would go up. Either there is a fear that, oh, I won't be able to afford tomorrow, or there is the investment greed that, oh, I want to make money when it goes up. Okay. Now, what happens with the sentiment? So sentiment plays very fast on it. That the moment I feel it's not going to go up, the investment community first takes a back foot. The second one is, if it's not going to go up, let me wait for 3 months and then think of buying. I'm not making a decision today. And that's what starts happening with the actual buyer personas. And that's where the sentiment comes in very fast. So global uncertainty and job market add to it. Qualified buyers, as the interest rate starts going up, the EMI starts going up. So the number of qualified buyers start reducing for the bank. LTV, as this starts happening, interest rate starts going up, they see some losses here and there, the banks start increasing the down payment. When the going is good, I am giving 98% loan. But when the going starts getting tougher, I give 90%, 85%, 80%. And so that whole thing, that reduces the number of buyers. So you reduce the number of buyers in the whole market, again, the probability of prices going up reduce, again, the cascading effect comes, and you have more and more inventory building up. But the housing companies will keep building because they already have land taken at a very low price and people are booking, so they will keep building. So they keep adding to the inventory. Or sometimes they are public companies, so they want to show how many housing starts, how many units they have put out, how many they are selling. They will keep building, and the resale market gets heavily impacted first. So that's the first thing that happens, that nobody wants to buy a resale flat. Even today, if you go on a resale market today in India, it's 20% cheaper than the builder market. So that's the first impact that we start seeing. And banks have a thin capital. So all of us operate so well because we operate with a huge leverage. That's how profit is made in banks. We operate on thin capital. And then there are mark-to-market losses. So the regulator then says that, okay, now your loss in this portfolio area is so much. And because there are 5 houses that you sold at this much loss, because you had a default, now you have 5,000 houses. So calculate the loss on those 5,000 houses and take that as a provision on your books. Okay. Now, when this mark-to-market loss happens, the capital gets wiped out because you're already operating at thin capital. The capital gets quickly wiped out, and the funds are consumed where there are no funds for the loans. That's what actually drives the cascading effect. So typical non-borrower factors that we could look at is buyer persona shift. So a lot of the people are buying houses when they're just kind of 2 years into it. Second, income-wise housing inventory and occupancy in a particular geography. Like, are there houses available at a level where people are willing to buy? Then sector performance. Oh, sorry. I think the buzzer is out there. I might have to wrap up in a couple of minutes. Showing 3 minutes and then it's going to zero very fast. So maybe it's organizers. All right. So sector performance and exposure, geography preference shifts, metro to non-metro, microgeographic resident profile, and job market and sentiment, land availability. So this is one point I wanted to say. When I was a kid, 4-story building was the limit. When I was like 25 years old, 10-story building was the limit. Now 40-story building is the norm. So the availability of housing in that same land is going to shoot up. So is inventory going to hit a different level, which we have not thought of before? And looking at all this, the board's dilemma is who blinks first? Okay, so when we had all this whole thing where the credit group was telling, oh, this is happening, that is happening, the delinquencies are increasing and that's happening, none of the board wanted to blink first because nobody wanted to take their pedal off the growth. And so that's where growth versus prudent lending versus profitability. Growth hides losses. So everybody in credit knows that the newer portfolios are low loss. But the newest portfolio keeps getting worse when this happens in housing because they are the ones who bought at the top of the bubble and they are the ones who default most. And capitalization is driven by absolute numbers. So there was very lot of talk around low FICO guys going bad. But you know, actually the high FICO guys were disaster because they bought a $2 million house and that house came to 600,000. The low FICO guys bought at 250,000 and that came at 200,000. So what we lost on the high FICO guys, large California and Florida homes, which was like $1 million, $1.5 million. It was not the low FICO. I mean, the low FICO were of course there, but still, the big losses came by the absolute numbers. Now, who is picking up the risk and can better models mitigate it is the question. And all our focus all this time, you know, the data science guys, that time they used to call the statisticians, they used to be the holy cow of the company. And they would go after that additional 1% accuracy in the model. And there was a lot of money which was spent and a lot of focus, which is the most accurate model and all that. So is that going to help here? Practically not. Or shall we backtrack on non-borrower factors regularly is what the question is. And getting into, say, lender councils, a collaborative sharing of data and non-personal data or non-sensitive data is something that I want to throw out today. Because this is somewhere where India is today at a juncture. And as I said, the switches happen so fast, nobody even recognizes. So is that something which is there? And then I have my colleague Himanshu from Qlik who's going to take that. By the way, I'm Amit Gadkari from Predoole Analytics. As I,
No. Hello. Better? Yeah. So as my colleague Amit was, pointing about that, there's a lot of optimism about, machine learning models throwing a lot of insights and a lot of decision making is, kind of driven by this. But I think the key point here is, while data-driven decision making is very important, it's also very important to look at the complete picture, right? I mean, a subset of data, if driving a decision is not going to throw the results that we expect. And that's where, Qlik platform comes into the play. So with its unique associative index, what we allows to do is, it allows you to analyze all data, explore without boundaries, and to do so at the speed of thought, right? So what I mean by that is, you should be able to bring data from all your sources. It could be your inside sources, it could be third-party sources, it could be the data available in public domain. So you should be able to bring all the data into one common platform, into one common data model, be able to explore that data freely without any bias, without any constraint, more into a free flow, human thinking kind of way, which can make it easier for the users, generate insights. It should not be a domain of only the power users or only the data scientists. It has to trickle down right up to the lowest level of the organization. And most importantly, the system has to keep up with the chain of thought of the user. Because if the system is slow, that chain of thought is drilled. People stop asking questions. So it's very important that system is, constantly throwing results and allowing user to ask or post more questions from the system. In turn, creating a fusion of human and machine, which generates a lot better insights, right? Uh, yeah, so this is where Qlik's associative engine, Qlik has kind of fused it with cognitive capabilities, bringing in its own AI and MM capabilities, bringing those two together, so that the system allows you a sort of guided, analytics experience at every stage of that journey. So the user, the machine or the system is constantly guiding the users, right from the first stage of, exploring the data, preparing the data, creating the models, and then throwing and, creating insights for the users in an intuitive human interaction kind of way, right? So that, even the non-technical business users can take full advantage of the insights which the data is throwing at them. It becomes part of a, of that intuitive process of decision making. Should not be something, which should only be in the domain of, technical experts, right? And most importantly, analytics, if done separately, is never going to succeed. Analytics has to be embedded right where it's required most, which is in the process of decision making. It should be, embedded. So I'll just take, I guess, 1 minute. So the buzzer is constantly reminding me. But yeah, the whole point is, the analytics has to be embedded in your everyday business processes, in your business applications, right at the point, where users are making the decision, because that's what's going to empower the users to make right decisions which are based on data and not the gut feeling. And this is where, Qlik helps the users, through the active intelligence journey, wherein, we bring in the real-time automated pipelines right from raw data to automated actions, and, aiding the users in analytics across this entire journey, right? And most importantly, most of the BI and analytics projects, they are long-term projects where, you keep on going one step to another, but the end result, is only, so to say, achieved at the end of this journey. So what Qlik helps you do is, while you embark on this journey, there is a value which is accrued at every stage of this journey. So when you're going from point A to point B, at every step you get some, value out of it, not just at the end picture of it. Right? So please do visit us at our booth. If you have any challenges with respect to your data, throw them at us and let us help you do that. Thank you so much.